Let's look at some videos of people riding and see if we can pick out what the common denominator is between all these videos. One of the most common pieces of advice in motorcycling is to ride like you're invisible. And I bet 95% of the people who are watching this video have heard that saying from a well-meaning fellow rider who's given them some advice. You know, there's a lot of truth to that saying, but let's break it down and get some practical understanding behind that statement. Because it's not enough to understand that we're hard to see if we don't have some strategy to deal with it. So instead of worrying that we're invisible, let's see what we can do to make ourselves more visible. So being visible on a motorcycle starts here, strategic lane position. If you're riding in blind spots, if you're riding close behind other vehicles, if your lane position is in an area where cars are not expecting to see traffic, like way to the outside of the lane, like right up next to the curb, you're going to be much harder to see. Instead of riding in an assertive position within their lane, many riders go way to the outside of the lane, trying to put more space between them and the oncoming traffic, but that lane position makes them much harder to see for all the other cars on the road. So when a car pulls up to a stoplight and they give that quick look to the left, their brain, by default, is looking for cars and trucks, and they're looking for those towards the center of the lane, coming in the opposite direction, not way over by the curb. They're not expecting fast-moving traffic to be way over in that position in the lane. The default riding position for me is just to the left of the center line. I then use the rest of the lane when needed to help me see up the road better, to avoid obstacles, or any other time shifting position within my lane would be to my advantage. It's important to use the entire lane to your advantage, but if all things are equal, my default position is just left of the center line. So just left of that dark area, right down the center. I'm just right in that area as my default position. So our strategic lane position is huge to help cars and trucks see you better and make you less invisible on the road. On a side note, the MCrider Road Strategy book is back from the printer. So I've got the Road Strategy book and the Field Guide now. These are both in stock and they're ready to ship. If you ordered a pre-order version of the Road Strategy or the combo of both books together, it's in the mail. You should have received a shipping email with a tracking number in it to track your shipment, and it should be to you early next week is what I'm seeing for most delivery dates. So with that said, if you want a field guide or a road strategy book, they're both in stock and ready to ship. As soon as I receive your order, you can get full details at mcrider.com/books. Another thing that many riders do to make themselves more visible is to wear high-vis or contrasting color riding gear. Wearing brightly colored gear can help, but the value is greatly reduced if we don't have the bike in the proper lane position where the rider can be seen. So again, if your lane position is bad, that driver is a whole lot less likely to see you if you're way to the outside of the lane than if you're in a more prominent position in your lane. Another big disadvantage of relying solely on high-vis gear for visibility is that the front of the motorcycle often covers up most of the gear. So I've got two motorcycles over there. I've got my Triumph Rocket 3 and my Indian Challenger. If I'm on the Indian Challenger, the fairing covers most of the high-vis gear that I wear, so it's a whole lot less valuable. And because most motorcycle accidents happen because of something that happens in front of the rider, having that high-vis gear covered up gives it a big disadvantage over some other options. This next piece of advice to make yourself more visible is a bit controversial, but it makes a huge difference out on the road, and that's a headlight modulator. A headlight modulator is a device that turns on during the day, causes the motorcycle headlight to strobe so it flashes. You know, there's some misinformation about modulators online. Somebody's probably going to say it down here in the comments that it's illegal where they live, But if you live in the U.S., they are legal in all 50 states. If you don't believe me, look it up and search the Federal Motorcycle Vehicle Safety Standard number 108, or FMVSS 108. It's got all the details on the legality of modulators on motorcycles. I've installed modulators on a couple of motorcycles that I've owned, and they make a noticeable difference in regards to other cars being able to see you. In fact, from my own experience, this is probably the single greatest thing you can do on your motorcycle to make yourself more visible on the road. You know, some people don't like them, but that's a personal preference, and that's a different argument. For the purpose of this video, though, if you live in the U.S., modulators are legal, and from at least one rider's perspective, mine, they make a huge difference in your visibility out on the street. So don't believe me, this is a video that I recorded a long time ago that you can compare with and without the modulators and see the difference for yourself. So if you don't want to put a modulator on your motorcycle, you can at least use your high beam during the day. You know, this is another point of controversy for some reason, that riders are claiming that using your high beams are going to blind oncoming cars. In this case, we're using the high beams during the day, and that's got very limited impact on drivers out on the road during the day. So unless your headlights are brighter than the sun, any approaching driver's eyes are already adjusted for a greater level of light that your headlights are going to put out. So how much does it help using your high beams? Well, I'm not really sure. I usually ride with my high beams on during the day, and maybe it helps some cars see me sooner, but I can't really say. It's not nearly as noticeable as it is when you're riding with a modulator on, but it does make your motorcycle more visible if you combine that with a little bit of swerve left and right to get some lateral movement. That and the high beams on and that little swerve back and forth when approaching cars in a danger zone, it's going to make you more visible. Aside from doing these simple things to make yourself more visible, there are other things that you can do to help as well, and one of them is covering your brake. In traffic, and especially in higher risk situations like approaching an intersection, covering the brakes with your fingers will shorten your stopping distance. You know, some riders get concerned about how many fingers they should cover the brake with, whether 1, 2, or all 4 fingers. My answer is that depends. It depends on the bike that you ride, the length of your fingers, how far the brake lever is from your handle. You know, a brake on a cruiser is going to require a little more pressure than the front brake on a lot of sport bikes that I've ridden. So there's a lot of things that contribute to whether you should use 1 finger, 2 finger, all 4 fingers, whatever makes you comfortable and whatever helps you get the job done. If you're covering those brakes in the high-risk situation, I say go for it. But the bottom line is that covering the brakes is going to reduce the time to apply the front brake, and that will in turn shorten your stopping distance. So when you're practicing emergency braking out on a parking lot with your field guide, you got a field guide, right? When you're out there practicing your emergency braking, do some runs covering the front brake, do some runs with your fingers all the way on the grip, and get used to developing that skill in both situations. You know, I think you'll see an improvement in your stopping distance when covering the brakes. So when you get out there and practice, do it both ways and see which way works best for you. Another huge advantage you can give yourself when it's hard for drivers to see you is to slow down in high-risk zones. A high-risk zone is anywhere the chances of a crash or a near miss are increased. These are things like intersections, blind spots of other drivers, driveways and parking lots, curves or corners with limited visibility, or wet and slick conditions, just to name a few. So slowing down gives you time and space are what you need to overcome a driver who, out of negligence or an honest mistake, doesn't see you on the road. Hey, did you know most people watching this video are not subscribed? If you want to get videos like this in front of more riders, click the subscribe button on YouTube. It's totally free, and it's the best signal to YouTube that MCrider produces valuable content. So if you've enjoyed this video or anything else I've put out in the last 8+ years, Subscribe to MCrider on YouTube and help my videos reach a broader audience. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. If you enjoyed this video, please consider becoming a member of MCrider. You get access to the forums and the field guide and a whole lot more. All the details can be found at mcrider.com/member.